So this is an article from the Bureau of Investigative Journalism, and it's about another one of those Brexit benefits. It's talking about how the migrant system is being exploited by particularly recruiters in the agriculture industry in order to exploit people who are coming from countries with very insecure immigration status. So it's part of a scheme called the Farm Workers Visa Scheme, and the headline is meant to be attention grabbing, but I think you'll find it's justified based on all that comes after it. They treat you like an animal, how British farms run on exploitation. And the article goes on to detail the experiences of people coming from places in continents including Africa, Asia, and Europe to this new scheme that has been heavily expanded at the demand of many of the farm owners and people in the agriculture industry. Traditionally, Eastern Europeans have been the people who have been manning farms in the United Kingdom and making sure that the food and the particularly produce, vegetables and fruit are able to be cultivated and harvested. And this has been under pretty harsh conditions. The job itself is challenging. This isn't just blackberry picking for fun. This is intense, and it is hard work, and it has been traditionally pretty poorly paid. There is an often quoted maxim that they can't get English people or British people or local people to do this work. And this isn't just an idle statement. This is something that actually is true, as we'll find out. So people are identified, 875, my number here. There's a dehumanizing element to this. Now, this is something that is not necessarily industry standard, but it's indicative of how the people that are coming into this are viewed. This article talks about the experiences of several, but picks on a couple in particular, who may have come from parts of the world. They're talking about Angel, a single mother from South Africa. They also talk about another African woman who was a union organizer, who compares the conditions to slavery. There is inadequate medical treatment. There is, on top of that, there are financial penalties for supposedly not working hard enough. And these financial penalties can leave you indebted to the recruiters or to the people that might have aided you in coming onto this scheme, which is painted as an economic opportunity, something that is really a great chance for many people who are living in areas of lower economic opportunity. So they have to pick about 100 to 150 kilograms of strawberries a day in hot polytunnels. A litany of problems: not going to the toilet for fear of not hitting targets, being made to work in gale force winds, people talking about being lifted physically off the ground. Many left in debt and destitution and left the UK being owed money by their employers. So on top of going through this ordeal, in which many were were verbally abused, in which they were exploited, tales of people being charged extortionate rates for their basic accommodation. And I say extortionate rates with some context if you put it in comparison to the amounts that we used or charged for people across the globe. Even in the United States for similar schemes, UK farms are often charging a premium for relatively basic accommodation. They have to, many take loans to come here, as I said. Deansdale says, this is one of the employers, we do not refer to members of staff by their numbers. However, we do refer to members of staff by their numbers. However, this is not to degrade the individual, but purely on a business need basis as a standard in the industry. Well, that is a highly opaque statement, isn't it? Doesn't really reveal anything about the actual nature of what is going on. But it says the farm says it takes the allegations of bullying and the health and safety of workers seriously. It was an upset to be made aware of allegations. It measures temperatures inside the polytunnels. Well, obviously, if you've ever done any kind of manual labor, you know that working inside a polytunnel with lots of other people in the any kind of heat, multiplier heat, it's kind of hot. It's going to get very hot. And, people have complained about fainting. People have complained about other medical issues. So there's a culture of fear. Now, this culture of fear is basically linking immigration status and the possibility of your employer reporting you as an overstayer or just terminating you and forcing you to go back in debt. It's linking that to productivity. So clearly there is a prime opportunity for exploitation. So the scheme was ramped up post-Brexit because there was a great need. As I said previously, a large number of the people that were actually doing the hard graft of making sure that our country was able to pick and to distribute its produce were people from Eastern Europe. And obviously Brexit put a kibosh with that. So now recruiting has happened in other areas of the globe. But as these new workers have come in, they are clearly not benefiting from rights that were enshrined in UK law. There is even an exception about minimum wage being paid. There's an exception about what they can be paid, and also about linking, the fees that have to be paid. So if we go down and find the section here, growing debt. So we talk about Angel. Obviously, some of the people here are being disguised and have their names disguised because there'll be reprisals. Some are, featured. So we talk about here one person, her name is Sybil Miswane. I apologize if I've not pronounced that correctly. So she decided to apply as a fruit worker when her work as a human rights consultant dried up during the COVID-19 pandemic. She'd worked with trade unions in South Africa and was shocked to discover how few labor protections workers had in the UK. Slavery has been outlawed, but it still exists within the farms, she said. You can't physically abuse people, but you can verbally abuse people, and you can threaten them with their livelihood. I think that's a very eloquent description of the situation. And it would seem that the scheme, at its conception, really leaves that open as a tool for any potentially exploitative employers. From the first day, she said she was put to work on the field without training and expected to hit targets. And while the visa scheme rules state that workers should be treated fairly, punishing workers who miss targets is widespread in farms across the country. And workers told the Bureau of Investigative Journalism at least 7 farms where this practice was common. Ms. Wani said that in her first few weeks, she saw people crying as they returned from the field. 2 South African workers told the Bureau that they left the farm just weeks into the job after suffering bullying by supervisors and allergic reactions to the fruit they were picking that the farm did not address. One of them put in a detailed complaint to her recruiter, the charity Concordia, and never heard back. Another worker at Choosley, whose name they were withholding, said that she couldn't go to the toilet because she would miss targets and she would get shouted at as she did. She said, you get mentally, physically, and emotionally broken down. The way they work with people, I wouldn't even do to my worst enemy. Then they tell you if you don't want to work on these standards, you can go. So Sybil Miswane says that she used the last of her savings to pay for her flights to the UK. Many of her compatriots approached loan sharks who charge as much as 70% interest, thus creating a system of indentured servitude, where workers are less likely to speak out for fear of being refused work and having their earnings cut. Some workers arrive with bigger debts, with their detailed both in Nepal, for example. Some paid informal brokers more than £4,000, guaranteeing them a place on the scheme. And this is not universal in the industry, but there are also other economic pressures. So some demand workers pay for their own bed linen, farmers charge for accommodation, gas and electricity, charge £15 to do their pillows, £1 to go to use the washing machine. One worker said they had to pay for transport to the field. People charge workers nearly £85 a week for shared a room in a caravan, and that's more than they pay for 8 hours of work. This is compliant within government caps on the rent, according to one of the farms. And it's in sharp contrast with the worker programs in other countries like the US, where flights and accommodation are covered by the farm, or Canada, where the cost of the accommodation is capped at 30 Canadian dollars, or £18 per week. And workers are charged income tax, or apparently charged income tax. This could be fraudulent, despite many of them are being unlikely to earn enough to meet the income tax threshold of £12,750 over the course of a year. You can see the various supermarkets, which is deeply involved in our food chain. Waitrose said, "A worker welfare is absolutely vital to us, and we're really concerned to read these allegations. We're looking into this with our supplier as a matter of urgency." Other supermarkets did not comment. So the government has said that it's the responsibility of the recruiters to sponsor the workers to monitor and ensure their welfare. But in practice, the rules to ensure workers' welfare are rarely enforced. The Home Office said the welfare of visa holders is of paramount importance, including in the seasonal workers scheme, and we are clamping down on poor working conditions and exploitation. We will always take decisive action when we believe abusive practices are taking place. And announced that from April 2023, it would stop requiring farms to pay seasonal workers above the minimum wage. So, it stopped requiring farmers to. On the one hand, they're saying, look, we want them to have great welfare, but we're stopping. They no longer have to earn the minimum wage. And it also promised measures around safeguarding, requiring farms to guarantee workers at least 32 hours of work a week. So, talking about the major problem left unaddressed with the seasonal worker scheme is the absence of targets of compliance activity by labour market enforcement bodies. So they're not compliant with their, and there's no one making them compliant. Enforcement is a problem. So it seems that more than 2,300 people on seasonal visas arrived in the UK in September 22. Recruiters are apparently telling other workers they have to leave because there's no work available. So one recruiter tried to force workers to leave because their month was up, and in November, this company, AG Recruitment, told several Nepali workers at Gaskins there's no work available there or any other farm, and went as far as threatening them with blacklisting if they didn't leave the UK. At the same time, they're preparing to bring more Nepali workers to the UK. So we can see at the bottom of this article, which I do urge you to read, there are links for anybody who's affected by this issue about where you can get support. But I just wanted to raise awareness about this phenomenon for those who might need it. This is clearly unacceptable. I'll write to my MP, whatever that's worth, and we'll see what is the result of this. Right. Anyway, this is Political Camp, and I'm Johnny Verbo, and I say until next time.